In a side alley, just off a main street, there is another world. A drag singer in a long blonde wig and a black evening gown croons the opening lines of Back to Black by Amy Winehouse. Dozens, perhaps hundreds of people watch as theatre lights catch the meticulous detail of the performer's makeup. As the song goes on, the audience begins to sing along. For a moment, the fantasy becomes real. At least for one night, in this shabby bar. I sing along too, but mostly I watch the crowd. I'm in awe. Because this is not London or New York. This is Central Asia. I've been reporting on LGBTQ issues in the region for many years, and I know how rare spaces like this are. Across much of Central Asia, queer people still hide their identities out of fear of family rejection, public judgment, and violence. Let's go! I remember that moment vividly. It was autumn 2024, and this was my first visit to Amirovka, Almaty's best-known queer club. At the time, at least 3 other bars in the city hosted drag performances, several nights a week. Fast forward to April 2026, and Amirovka is gone. And the few queer spaces left face frequent police raids. In December 2025, Kazakhstan passed a law banning so-called LGBTQ propaganda, echoing legislation introduced in Russia. Unlike in Russia, though, the queer community here has not been designated an extremist movement. At least, not yet. But the fear that this could come next is real. In just a matter of months, Almaty, a city many once described as Central Asia's queer capital, has begun to close in on itself. Will it fight back? This is Rainbow Almaty, the end of a queer dream. Hi, my name is Agnieszka Pikulicka and this is Turan Tales audio feature, bringing you fascinating stories from Central Asia, made possible by the International Press Institute. If you like what you hear, support us with a monthly subscription at turantales.substack.com/subscribe. Enjoy the story! When Slava, a lanky, flamboyant man, opens the door to his flat in a residential district of Almaty, what unfolds is a world of colorful feathers, gowns, and wigs.
Здравствуйте, очень приятно. Наконец-то нашла.
Recording equipment and lamps are scattered throughout the room. With the anti-propaganda law now in place, he's planning to move some of his performances online. He's 27. And by day, works as an analyst for a Russian sociological research firm. By night, since 2024, he has been known as Natasha Homophobia, one of Almaty's top drag performers. Today, it is hard for him to tell where Slava ends and where Natasha begins.
Чем отличается Наташа от
What's the
Славы?
difference between Natasha and Slava?
Блин, хороший вопрос, я про это думал, я не знаю. Мне кажется, ничем. Мне кажется,
Damn, that's a good question. I've been thinking about that. I don't know. It seems to me like there's no difference. Like with any mask, that's the magic of theatre. People allow themselves more when they're wearing one. They throw stones at others, say nasty things, and let themselves do things they normally wouldn't. To me, it's like a hyperbolic version of Slava. It's just that in daytime life, I'm a serious senior analyst. But here, I can be anyone.
Быть кем угодно.
Slava was born in Shchokino, in Russia's Tula region, but left the country after the war in Ukraine began. He did not want to be conscripted, and he opposed the war. At first, he and his partner Gleb, a producer, planned to move to Georgia. But administrative obstacles left them stranded in Almaty. Soon, they fell in love with the city.
Алматы, в принципе, такой либеральный, город, мне кажется.
Almaty is basically a liberal city, I think. If the idea of a gay capital applies anywhere in this region, in Central Asia, then I think Almaty could be called that.
Алмату можно так назвать.
Let's go.
Natasha homophobia has been taking shape inside Slava for some time. At first, he was simply a fan of RuPaul's Drag Race, the American reality series in which drag performers compete for the crown. A drag queen is typically a performer, often a gay man, who uses costume, makeup, and performance to embody a heightened or theatrical form of femininity. At first, Slava had no desire to perform himself. That changed when he saw one contestant on RuPaul's Drag Race, who inspired him. Soon after, Natasha homophobia was born. Slava shows me a YouTube video of one of his performances.
Но в 86-м по ней пошло все. В результате аварии на Чернобыльской атомной электростанции.
У меня есть ссылочка, называется Becoming Natasha.
Okay.
I have a piece. It's called Becoming Natasha. The story is, I imagine myself as a victim of Chernobyl radiation, living in a radioactive forest.
Но не все захотели покидать это место.
And in a way, it stayed like that. And it's actually true, because where I was born, there really was radioactive rain. I still joke about it.
Да, это самое.
Собирала на поляне девушка грибы.
Natasha might never have existed without Slava's move to Almaty and Amirovka, the city's main queer venue where she began performing.
И я просто влюбляюсь вообще сразу в это место. То есть...
I immediately fell in love with this place. Didn't expect to see anything like it here. And unlike the drag I'd seen on TV or in Russia, which often meant, I don't know, walking from one corner to another with a microphone and a backing track, there wasn't much desire to join in. Here, it's different. It's more theatrical. Performances are complex. It's dramaturgy, set design, special effects, some kind of concept, sometimes a pre-recorded voice. People are really flexing their creative muscles and creating something truly interesting. I haven't seen anything like it anywhere else.
И создают реально крутой, интересный продукт, который я не видел.
Урсула, ваши бурные аплодисменты.
As Natasha homophobia, Slava competed twice in Dragon, a drag competition at Amirovka, coming second both times.
Вершиной был вот финал 4-го сезона «Драгон».
The pinnacle was the finale of Dragon, Season 4. I truly think it was an epochal event. Everyone who was there remembers it that way, because nothing like it came before or after.
Помимо этого, во-первых, здесь сформировался вот этот механизм производства новых артистов такой устойчивый.
Beyond that, a whole system for producing new artists developed here. It was like a real talent school. Every 6 months, a new group of performers would emerge. They were helped to find their characters, improve their skills, work on props, wigs, costumes. There was a strong sense of community, everyone eager to create something exciting, to make it great.
Все настроены на разъеб.
One of the signs of the end of days. He will descend from the second heaven.
There wasn't much money involved, Slava says. What mattered was the community.
Драк, в принципе, в его изначальном... Как он появился, это же такое подпольное развлечение для нищих трансгендерных людей.
It's like drag in its original form, underground entertainment for poor transgender people and their friends. The whole idea is about turning trash into treasure. That DIY spirit is a huge part of this art form. You don't need big money, you just need a space and a community. And that's what created an entire culture of its own.
Нужно комьюнити. Ну и это обеспечило мир.
That evening in 2024, when I first walked into Amirovka, I wanted to meet the man behind it. And eventually, I did. Amir Shekazhanov, a man my age, with a friendly manner and laughing eyes, agreed to an interview. In April 2025, we sat down on the rooftop of his bar to talk about how he had managed to create a space where queer people from across Central Asia could feel at home, welcomed, accepted, and safe enough to be themselves. Amir had known he was gay from a young age, but for a long time he thought he was the only one. He had grown used to the idea that loneliness might simply be his fate. Then he moved to Almaty and discovered that he was not alone after all.
Я хочу оргазмирующие аплодисменты. Это какие? Оля, я еще пока не знаю.
He began frequenting the bars where queer people gathered. But he was troubled by what he found there. Heavy drinking, frequent fights, and what he saw as a culture shaped by internalized homophobia. He wanted to build something different. Spaces where people could feel accepted, loved, and treated with dignity. Places where they could pursue their dreams and flourish. He helped launch Kok Team, a website for queer Kazakhstanis, and Amanbor, the first project in Kazakhstan to offer HIV self-testing. Since the bars did not always feel safe, around 2016, he began inviting people from the community to his own 50-square-meter apartment for get-togethers that sometimes lasted for days. In time, people started calling the place Amirovka, Amir's house. He became one of Almaty's most prominent activists, community organizers, and LGBTQ voices, speaking openly under his own name about issues affecting the community, from transphobia to the stigma surrounding people living with HIV. After the years passed, Amirovka took on a more permanent form. Though it's changed location several times after first emerging in 2018, it remained a refuge for queer people from across Central Asia. And, after Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, for many from Russia as well. Amir made a point of ensuring that Russian migrants were welcomed into the bar and the wider queer scene. His partner, Bakhtiar, ran Dragon, the competition where Slava, so Natasha Homophobia, first found a platform for his work. Together, they had become something close to an institution. Several times during our meeting, people interrupted to ask Amir for help or advice. Each time, he responded patiently, ready to deal with whatever issue had arisen. He spoke a lot about trans rights, about the violent language that had become normalized in some drag spaces, and about the need for more inclusion, more care, and more love. That night on the rooftop, I asked him whether he feared that the anti-LGBTQ propaganda politics, already entrenched in Russia, and the wider anti-queer backlash that had followed, might eventually reach Kazakhstan. He said he wasn't worried. Kazakhs, he told me, were not like Russians. They minded their own business more. And he remained hopeful about the future. You may be wondering why you haven't heard Amir's voice yet, and why I'm not taking you back to that rooftop conversation in April. The answer is simple. I cannot ask for his permission to use the interview because Amir is in prison. In June 2025, a transgender man from Russia named Yelisei, who had worked at Amirovka, published a heart-wrenching video on social media telling that Amir had raped him. Attached to the statement was security camera footage showing a sexual encounter between the two. Soon afterwards, police arrested Amir on charges of rape and of exposing another person to HIV through sex. Kazakhstan's queer community was horrified. How could Amir have done this? Some people turned against him and against Amirovka itself. Others directed their anger at Yelisei.
Amirgate, так это назову,
Amirgate, as I call it, is a great tragedy for Kazakhstan as a whole, not just for the LGBTQ movement. I don't want to speak for the man himself, but he was very helpful. As an activist, as an employer, as someone who created a cultural space for artists and for people, a safe space where they could come home, he played an important role. Many people felt better there than at home. Many were there every day. It was simply a very important place.
Это просто было очень важное место.
Amir should face the consequences of his actions, Slava thinks. But his prolonged detention and the repeated postponement of his trial dates by the court appear to be politically motivated decisions by the authorities. 10 months have passed since his arrest, and Amir remains in custody. It is unclear when his trial will conclude.
Но я думаю, тут каким-то правосудием уже не пахнет.
I don't think there's any sense of justice here. Despite the charges, he's clearly being held not because of them, but because he's an inconvenient person for the authorities. And if we're talking about the original conflict, there are no winners at all. Everyone lost, and only the authorities won.
Там все проиграли, а выиграли только власти.
Amirovka did not survive the scandal. For several months, the space operated under a different name, Icon. But it soon closed. For this story, I reached out to several active drag performers and bar owners originally from Kazakhstan. But they either did not respond to my messages or declined to speak. Following the introduction of the propaganda law, people have begun to fear that the safe spaces they have spent years building might be at risk.
Unfortunately, we already, even before the law was introduced and adopted, we have been under severe repercussions and attacks.
This is Tamerlan, a 22-year-old activist with Queer KZ.
For example, in October last year, one of our colleagues from other organization was kidnapped, abducted by the military. I was detained for 3 hours. I was also attacked by the homophobic groups, by the police as well. When we had just gatherings or when we were in a restaurant, unfortunately, we see constant and systematic discrimination of human rights defenders, and especially human rights defenders that advocate for the rights of LGBTQ plus people in Kazakhstan. Now they will have reason to obey the law. And under the new law, we can face 15 days of imprisonment for publishing anything related to LGBT, because it can be marked as so-called alleged propaganda. So we believe this law is essential institutionalization of the hate crimes and discrimination.
Tamerlan sees several reasons why the government decided to pass the law.
First is that essentially the pressure from Russia. We have seen anti-gender groups in Kazakhstan operating heavily and working heavily with the organizations from Russia. We believe they have help from the Russian government, and it's no secret that Russian government heavily sponsors the far-right groups in Europe and as well as in Kazakhstan. So it's essentially lobbying from the Russian government. But moreover, it's also systematic use of the queer people as a political tool to gain political points. The government needs the approval of the people, and the easy way to gain is to appeal to the homophobic groups and the population, because the majority of the population is homophobic. So it's easy way to gain political points. There is a huge narrative being promoted that we are against the nation and the state to destroy them, which is of course ridiculous and not true.
We just having fun. We just having fun. But queer nightlife and drag in Almaty did not disappear. Alongside Kazakh-owned venues, Russian capital entered the scene following the invasion of Ukraine. Today, Blush Bar in Almaty is one of only 2 venues where drag performances are still held, every day from midnight onward, featuring both Kazakh and Russian performers. Just off a main street, the entrance lies at the end of a long corridor resembling a garage, guarded by security staff who meticulously check visitors' bags and documents. They ensure that no unauthorized individuals can enter the venue. Inside, to the left, hangs a tall pink sequin curtain, set against a glossy pink wall. A large shelf displays lavish high heels and a crown. Very flashy, very ostentatious, and very drag. In the dressing room, 2 performers finish their elaborate makeup and prepare for their shows. They carry themselves like divas, unapproachable and composed. And it is unclear whether this is a pose or part of their character. Shortly after midnight, the show begins. One after another, performers, some accompanied by dancers and sophisticated visuals, take to the stage, captivating the audience with their skill and glamour. Unlike at Amirovka, they do not sing live. But the performances remain mesmerizing, a true spectacle in the heart of Almaty. Every now and then, the audience's attention shifts to uniformed police officers who enter the venue without any clear purpose. Are they monitoring the situation? Looking for violations of written or unwritten rules? Trying to instill fear? No one knows. Their visits have become so frequent that they no longer surprise anyone. It is hard to define what a drag bar owner should look like. But if we rely on stereotypes, probably not like Artyom Demchenko. The 44-year-old from Novosibirsk, Russia, greets us in a multicolored tracksuit and sports shoes, with short hair and a casual beard. He and his partner opened a venue in Almaty after their drug bar in Krasnoyarsk was shut down by the authorities. On February 23rd, Russia traditionally celebrates Defender of the Fatherland Day, a national holiday honoring the military. In 2024, Demchenko's bar featured a special program.
23 февраля 2024 года. Естественно, была программа.
Naturally, there was a program. Naturally, there were performances that included costumes resembling military uniforms. A young man filmed the performance. He was a member of the community. Then he got into an argument with other guests. He was asked to leave because of his behavior. After that, he sent a video of our performer to a well-known public figure, Ekaterina Mizulina. The next day, we were surprised to see ourselves featured on her blog. After that, our bar was surrounded. There is a movement called Northern Man. They advocate for the purity of the Russian race. They came to our bar that evening and began intimidating guests and security. They were scaring our guests, scaring our security. Then the police arrived, but instead of protecting us, they forced everyone to the floor and said they now had a warrant accusing us of extremism.
Теперь, значит, у них уже ордер на то, что, значит, мы там занимаемся экстремизмом.
After the scandal, their bar in Krasnoyarsk was shut down, and they decided to leave. Russia was no longer safe. Since they already had contacts and friends in the local queer scene in Almaty, they moved their business to Kazakhstan. But recently, the situation in the city has become more tense.
Но у них постоянно проходят так называемые ОПМ, оперативно-профилактические мероприятия.
Well, there have always been raids. They regularly carry out so-called operational and preventative measures when they enter an establishment, ours or any other, where there might be 30 or 40 people, and try to find some kind of violation. Hookers, balloons, someone smoking, anything. And sometimes, frankly, it reaches the point of absurdity. Since January 1st, laughing gas balloons have been classified as a narcotic substance in Kazakhstan. There was one club, our competitor, that didn't remove these balloons. We never had them, but they did. They didn't get rid of them, and I think the officials came to their venue at the end of January. They confiscated the cylinders and shut the club down.
И, соответственно, изъяли баллоны и опечатали клуб.
It is still unclear what the limits of the new propaganda law will be, and whether bars like Blush will be targeted.
И вообще касается он нас или нет, тоже никто не может понять. И мы не можем понять. Вот он нас касается или нет.
No one can figure out whether it applies to us or not. We just don't know. On the one hand, it seems like it doesn't, because we're not a newspaper, not a magazine, not a bookstore, and we're not some kind of online cinema. But on the other hand, we have social media, we have accounts, we publish content. How do you determine what counts as propaganda and what doesn't? No one knows.
Как определить, какой контент пропаганда, а какой не пропаганда, никто не знает.
After 2 years of operation, Demchenko and his partner are considering leaving again. The pressure has simply become too great. If they do, Almaty will lose one of the last venues where queer people can enjoy themselves in peace and acceptance.
Сейчас взорвемся аплодисментами. И на этой сцене появляется наша вернувшаяся с отпуска.
The heyday of Almaty's queer scene seems to have passed. Outside Blush, a young regular named Sergei does not hide his pessimism. In his late 20s, he was born in northern Kazakhstan, but it was Almaty that helped him become the confident and extravagant man he is today. He did not want his voice to be featured in the story. His words are read by an actor.
We're seeing the consequences in the clubs themselves. There are more and more inspections, disrupting our peace and quiet. Before, it wasn't like this. I don't know, is being blonde or wearing my sequined blouse considered LGBT propaganda or not? This lack of clarity and understanding traps you in endless questions. I think that we're moving towards something like a Russia-style regime. Before, everything felt relatively free. I remember when I came to Almaty in 2015, I saw guys walking hand in hand in a shopping centre. But over the years, things have gotten worse. And what's more, we're thinking about moving to Poland or somewhere else in Europe.
Slava, Natasha, is not very optimistic either. He's also thinking about leaving Kazakhstan.
Я, в принципе, поменьше стал выступать, только если, не знаю, если меня очень позовут, если очень захочется.
I've been performing less lately. Only when I'm invited. Only if I truly want to. Especially after Amirovka closed. It was such a comfortable place. The stage was big, the audience was appreciative, and everyone knew me. I don't want to leave this place. I see that many people from this new wave that emerged around Dragon are stepping back. It scared a lot of them so much that they left drag altogether. Some have even closed their social media accounts. Many are planning to leave. They built a great community. They were open to new things. They welcomed us warmly, They're ready for cultural exchange, ready to help. I've grown to love this, and it's sad to see it fading before our eyes. It's not the same anymore. Just not the same.
И грустно, что это как-то на глазах перестает быть правдой.
The decline of the queer scene, along with the introduction of the censorious propaganda law, has already had an impact not only on the lives of LGBTQ people in the city and across Kazakhstan, but on the arts scene too. Before the law came into force in March, Mark Kuklin, a theatre director from Almaty, had the freedom to explore issues related to queer rights in his work. At Artishock, one of the city's leading avant-garde theatres, he staged Dark Room, a play by an anonymous Belarusian writer. It tells a coming-of-age story of a gay boy in authoritarian Belarus, touching on migration, sexual exploration, and abuse. The play is bold, heartbreaking, and unmistakably queer. It may have been one of the last times such a work was performed in a Kazakh theatre.
Everyone will start self-censoring, at least in the theatre. We're already doing it. All my friends and colleagues, I'm in touch with a lot of people from both independent and state theatres who are experiencing this. My friends and I often joke that Almaty was the queer capital of Central Asia, because life here was completely different. It was a wonderful city. I loved it very much. I've always wanted Almaty to be among those great cities, those Babylons, as I call them, like New York, Berlin, Paris, maybe Moscow one time, or St. Petersburg. It's definitely not there anymore. The LGBT propaganda law is just the first step, I think, that the government's taken. It's a small step towards greater censorship and greater control. Many of my friends and I started thinking about leaving, moving to another country, just to live in a freer society.
When I ask what he's afraid of, Kuklin answers philosophically.
Fear eats away at the soul. I think so because I see it in the theatre, in people's insecurity. I'd probably say I'm afraid of fear itself. It's better to do what you're afraid of than to simply be afraid.
Thank you for listening to this audio feature by Turan Tales. It was produced by me, Agnieszka Pikulicka, and the master of sound, Eva Dunal. Tomek Stankiewicz from Tostanki supported the sound design. Amalia Ibusheva composed the music, and Joe Barnes assisted with the voiceover. Finally, thanks to the International Press Institute for their grant, which made this production possible. If you like our work, please support us on Substack at turantales.substack.com/subscribe. Thank you. Until next month.